2 weeks ago, I travelled from Lombok to Bali to spend a few days at the Bali Monkey Rescue Centre. One of the main reasons for my trip was to catch up with Mellisa, who had arrived at the rescue centre 2 days before. Madon, or Mellisa, I should say. Hey, baby. So Mellisa is now called Madon, and the reason for that is it transpired she'd actually been tied to the Baruga for 3 years, not 1 month as we were initially told. Her captors had called her Madon, so after 3 years it just wouldn't have been fair to have changed her name. This is her looking a little bit lost and a little bit kind of shell-shocked, I would say. She was placed in an enclosure with one male called Pepco and 2 other female monkeys. What really stands out with Madon is she has a real natural gentleness about her, which seems to be quite rare with the long-tail macaques. She has quite a quiet and mild disposition, and she is just an absolute sweetheart. I'm still processing the fact that she was tied to that rope for 3 years. So I spent quite a lot of time just kind of watching and observing what was going on in the enclosure. Pepco, who is the only male and therefore the dominant male in this enclosure, really took a shine to her. This monkey here is called Alex, and I think he was quite jealous because he also wanted to make Madon his own. These enclosures are grouped together with the hope of forming a colony that can then be released in the wild, which is something I've explained in my previous video. So one day, Pepco and Alex will have to work out who is the alpha between the 2 of them. Right now they're kept separately to avoid any conflict and any violence between the 2 of them. So back to Madon, who, bless her, looks quite sad and confused. She's had a huge upheaval moving to a different enclosure, a different island, and now living with different monkeys. The good news for her though was, like I say, Pepco took a real shine to her. One of the things I watched happen a lot was if I was giving Pepco snacks, Madon would snatch it out of my hand and out of his hand, and he would let her do it. As the dominant male, for him to allow Madon to do this shows that he is happy for Madon to be the dominant female in the enclosure. Unlike the other females in the enclosure, Innie and Lexi, who got a really raw deal from Pepco, he just chased them relentlessly. Lexi actually got moved the following day into a different enclosure because Pepco was just horrible to her and she was too scared to come out or eat any food. This is Lexi in a cage next to a monkey called Kuta's enclosure. Kuta's another female. Lexi spent some time here so they could get acquainted before she moved in. It's 7 a.m. I think I've been awake since about 5 a.m. because these guys right outside the window wake up early. I thought my daughter woke up early and made lots of noise. And then I slept in the middle of a monkey sanctuary. It's raining actually in Ubud, which I don't see too much of in Bali, but show must go on. And the show did have to go on after a little bit of toothbrushing in the morning next to some monkeys. My daughter was actually petrified of them after a run-in with Jojo at the centre. So we had to leave a day early, which was a shame, but it just wasn't working out well for my daughter. Here's Lolly doing a very good job of disrupting the morning chore list. Every day, all of the cages in the ground is scrubbed so that there's fewer bacteria and the monkeys are less likely to catch any infections, and just so they have nice clean homes. Then breakfast gets prepared, and if you look very closely, you might see Lolly there parked on the side, just kind of seeing if there's anything worth having a nibble on. Lolly almost has a bit of a free rein at the centre, and one thing I learned that I found really interesting was an adult monkey will never attack one of the babies. So Lolly can go up to one of the enclosures with the more aggressive dominant male monkeys in, and they're really gentle with her, and I was really surprised to see that. When she becomes older, that will change. And then, yeah, there would be fights and difficulties, but the adult monkeys never attack a baby. And then it's breakfast time, and the amount of noise you hear when the food's coming around and being delivered, oh my goodness me, it's a lively place to be. Because me and my daughter ended up having to leave quite suddenly because she was just too scared to stay there, I wanted to have a catch up with Madon and just check out what was going on in the enclosure before we left. It was a very different sight to the day before. So you'll see Madon is the monkey who's led down, being groomed by Petco. She is absolutely the queen bee in that enclosure. And Innie is now allowed to also groom Madon. So I don't really know what changed there, other than maybe Lexi being removed and put in another enclosure. I'm not sure, but the dynamic was totally different and a lot more harmonious. And as I say that, Madon clearly gives Innie a little bit of a telling off. So what Innie then does is start to groom Petco as a kind of act of submission. And this is the thing with monkeys and primates. Their social structures that go on between them are so complex and so hierarchical. It's one of the many reasons why removing a monkey from its natural habitat and its family is so damaging, because these instincts are primal and they need these structures in order to thrive. When you force a monkey to live in isolation, it takes all of this away from them, which in itself is hugely abusive and causes often irreparable trauma to the monkey. And so after 2 nights, it was time for me and my daughter to head back to Lombok. I'm already itching to get back, but I think I need to make some childcare arrangements this time so I can really immerse myself in it all and get stuck in. It was lovely to see how Madon had settled in and that she was quite the queen bee of her enclosure. Whether that's the same next time we visit, who knows? Because one thing I've learned, in fact 2 things I've learned about long-tailed macaques. One thing is that they just seem to be quite bad-tempered. Well, most of them anyway. It seems to be part of their makeup. Endearing, but definitely crotchety. And secondly, they're very fickle. So I think between now and me going back to Bali, anything could change. All I know is that I cannot wait for my next trip back there.